30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard. We will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. It's great to have you guys aboard the mothership. We're happy you're here. We've hovered the ship out here in space because tonight we're talking about the universe, how it works, the paranormal, science, math, equations. It's going to get geeky, but don't worry, because I'm a genius. Ha! Not really. Not really at all. I'm not alone aboard the mothership. I want to say hello to, of course, the lovely and talented Matt and Andrew at the controls. How are you guys?
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Oh, it's good. What's new this week?
Not much. Not much. Did a little ghost hunting. Had some success catching an EVP. Having fun with the weird and the odd.
Always do. Matt, you've been searching for Sasquatch?
No, actually working on alien abduction cases. Going to pick up some physical evidence up in Maine this weekend and do some testing in the lab.
Wow.
Just another day at the office.
Wow.
For me, yeah.
Another day at the office. All right, very cool. We're going to be talking about Sasquatch a little bit later after the news. And of course, Laura, how are you tonight?
Oh, how could I be bad with this view behind me? Honestly, you guys, last time you guys had me looking at the Earth. Now you have me looking at the whole universe. I'm not ever going home. This is awesome.
I know. When we abduct, we do it right. All right. What's new this week, Laura?
Well, we've got to say greetings to TCC TV in Whitehall, Wisconsin. Thank you guys for broadcasting for the mothership signal from the basement of the Trempealeau County Courthouse. Seriously?
Yeah, I guess.
That's...
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
And we've got an email, of course, because we do always. Dear Oddballs, how do you say 30 odd minutes in Bulgarian? Who? Simeon Borisov, the Bronx, New York. Really, Simeon? You sound like you're Bulgarian yourself, but I'll give it to you. You're from the Bronx. So you say 30 stranni minuti. Welcome.
She just made that up.
No, I didn't. I know my language. Do you know my language?
We can hope that you didn't just swear. That's all we were hoping for.
Well, you're just going to have to check your other Bulgarian friends.
That's right. We have no other Bulgarian friends. So thank you, Laura. Thank you for the emails. You can all email us at info@30oddminutes.com. You can watch the shows live while they're broadcast at www.30oddminutes.com and join in the chat room. Laura's watching you, so she knows what you're thinking. Be careful. Ooh. All right, let's get to it. Can the paranormal be proven by science? Can we turn remote viewing, ghosts, or clairvoyance into mathematical equations? Are we getting close to explaining the unexplained? Tonight's guest says we might be. He's the author of the new book, The Paranormal Equation, a new scientific perspective on remote viewing, clairvoyance, and other inexplicable phenomena. He received his BA from Yale University, his master's and PhD from the University of California at Berkeley. He's the author of more than 30 research articles on mathematics. He's an active blogger for Psychology Today and the Huffington Post. Beaming to us live from Redondo Beach, California, please welcome Dr. James Stein.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good evening, Jeff. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
Well, it's on our ship. It's great to have you here aboard the mothership and talking about the paranormal. I got to know, what's a mathematician doing looking into the paranormal?
An excellent question, because I've been asked that by people on both sides of the fence.
Sure.
And I got into it on sort of an odd way. I first was exposed to the paranormal when I was very young. There was a story about Bridie Murphy. I'm not sure whether or not you're familiar with that, but there was a Colorado housewife who was subjected to past life regression by a psychiatrist. And during that time, she started speaking in an Irish accent and revealed that she'd had a past life as one Bridie Murphy. And fascinating stuff. This was on the front page of the New York Herald Tribune when I was, 11 or 12 years old, and I just gobbled it up. And I'd also read a science fiction book called Slan by A.E. Van Vogt, which discussed telepaths. And so I thought this was fascinating stuff. But as I got older, science sort of pushed the paranormal to the back burner. And then a few years ago, I'd always realized that there were a number of top scientists who'd been interested in the paranormal and the supernatural. And a doctor friend of mine said, "Hey, Jim," we were talking, and he said, there are three types of facts in the universe. There are the known facts, the unknown facts, and the unknowable facts. And I sort of thought about this for a while. And it was thinking about that plus some of my own experiences that got me into this.
Right. So you put down your calculator and you pick up your pen. Now listen, I'm a words guy. I very much am a word guy, a story guy. Math confuses me, especially when you start mixing letters and numbers. I'm completely lost. So please go slow for my benefit, because I'm the dumbest one in the room, if you don't count.
Probably not. And one of the things that I've discovered about math is that if you talk about math, like in shows like Numbers, everybody really enjoys it. It's when you start doing math that people get turned off. And I guarantee you I'm not going to do any math here.
Thank goodness.
But in order to get an idea of the known, the unknown, and the unknowable, if you could rev up the slide 4, I think it was. Can you do that?
Yes. It's actually Mount Everest, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Right.
Great view of Mount Everest. Glad I'm not there. It looks cold. And it's not in Redondo Beach, California. But anyway, here's an example of a known fact. Mount Everest is the highest mountain on the planet. We've measured all the mountains. There are no invisible ones. This one is it. That's an example of a known fact. And if you could go to slide 5.
Right. The Mars meteorite?
That's the one. Okay, this is a picture from a Mars meteorite, and this was made famous in 1984. I think we were all sort of celebrating at the time that the world didn't look like the 1984 that George Orwell had envisioned.
Right.
And this meteorite was dug out of, I think, Antarctica. And they know it comes from Mars because if you do chemical analyses on these things, the chemical structure of Mars has a different signature than the chemical structure on Earth. So they knew it was from Mars, and there were things in the meteorite that looked like they might have been the residue of living organisms. And so people have been wondering, for decades, in fact, probably longer, centuries, is there life on Mars?
Right.
Well, that's an example of an unknown fact. Either there is life on Mars or there isn't. I'm hoping we get there in my lifetime, and as you can tell, we better get there soon because I'm sort of pushing the edge of needing it to be done in the next 30 years. But anyway, whether or not there's life on Mars and whether or not we find out about it, it's an unknown fact at the moment. It is a fact that there's either life or there isn't. We just don't know it. That's an example of an unknown fact. But the unknowable facts are the really confusing ones. And when my doctor friend first started to talk to me about unknowable facts, I thought to myself, how does this relate to anything that's going on in the universe? Because this doctor friend of mine, he's a very, very prestigious physician and medical researcher. He's had a lot of his work published. He was trained at Harvard. You may know about Harvard. I think it's located somewhere in your backyard. He's a very bright guy, and he's told me that he's had experiences of what I would call deja vu. He walks into rooms, and he says he knows what's going to be in the room even before he's walked into it. And this hasn't happened to him just once. It's happened several times. So this is not something you can explain by ordinary, it doesn't really fall in the category of either known facts or unknown facts. It's something that's beyond what science normally talks about. And so I wasn't really sure about this because most of the time I walk into rooms, I either know what's in the room or sometimes I'm concentrating on something else and I don't. But I've never had a flash of insight that, hey, on the other side of the door is a picture of the Mona Lisa, unless I'm in the Louvre or something like that. And, you might get a clue there. Right. But anyway, I realized a few years ago when I was writing another book, how about a shameless plug here? Can I put one in?
Sure, go ahead.
Love it. The title of the book was How Math Explains the World. I realized that mathematics had actually come to grips with the ideas of unknowable facts. And this happened in the 1930s. In the 1930s, there was a very brilliant Austrian mathematician named Kurt Gödel, and he proved something that absolutely blew everybody in mathematics away. He proved that there were true facts in mathematics that could not be proved. And this just astounded everybody because I said I wasn't going to talk much about mathematics, and I'm not really. But if you remember when you took geometry in high school, you were exposed to something called the Pythagorean theorem, which was proven 2,500 years ago by Pythagoras, not surprisingly. And it doesn't even matter whether or not you remember what it said. It talks about right triangles, and it gives you a big truth about right triangles. And you cannot discover the truth of the Pythagorean theorem by going around and measuring every right triangle to see it's true, because there are infinitely many right triangles. So you're barred from learning the truth about right triangles that way, and you have to prove it by mathematical proof. And so what mathematicians always thought before Gödel was either it's true and we can prove it, like the Pythagorean theorem, or it's false and we're going to come up with an example one way or another. Right. And what Gödel showed was that in any system in which there are an infinite number of objects, there exists truth which cannot be proved. And Gödel's proof is a little confusing, so what I thought I'd do is I thought I'd show you something confusing. If you can show the T-shirt.
Oh, yes, of course. That is, where are we at? Right there. Thank you, Eric.
Hey, this is known as the Paradox T-shirt. I'm not sure who you can order it from, but not me. Anyway, if you try to trace down the logic of the statement below is false, the statement above is true, you'll find you get tangled up. It just doesn't seem to work. And there are examples of statements in mathematics which just get you tangled up like this. And what Gödel did was he took sort of the basic idea that's on this T-shirt, whipped it up into a mathematical formula, and discovered that there were truths about mathematics that could not be proven mathematically. And remember, I'm writing this book, and in the back of my mind, I'd always been interested in the idea that there were a lot of top scientists that have believed in the paranormal and the supernatural, but they can't really put their finger on why they believe in the paranormal and the supernatural. They just do. Isaac Newton, probably the greatest scientist of them all, once said when he was asked how he felt about what it was that he discovered, he said, it seems to me like I'm a boy on the edge of the seashore discovering a prettier pebble or seashell than the others, while all around the great undiscovered ocean of truth lay before me. And I think that's what most scientists feel when they actually discover something. They know they found something, and that's great, but there is so much out there in the undiscovered ocean of truth. And what it occurred to me was that if you took Gödel's ideas on there are unknowable facts in mathematics and translated them, instead of just mathematical facts, look at physics, look at the stuff that the universe is made of. Physics deals with things such as energy, mass, force, length, time, information. And if you could put up, I think, the picture of Einstein.
Yes, we have Einstein. There he is.
Just a second while I sort of bow at the at the altar here. But anyway, E equals MC squared is the most famous equation in science, and we know it in two ways. We know it first; it was known because it was logically deduced from the way we feel that the axioms of physics behave, and also we've confirmed it because we've done a lot of experiments that show that basically we feel that it's right. And we've never seen an example that's wrong. But if you look at what Gödel was thinking thinking that there are mathematical statements which are true but which can never be proven. And my idea, and I don't think it's an original idea at all, I just think he's really bothered to articulate, because I think a lot of scientists sort of subconsciously have something like this in mind, that there may well be equations or relationships between the various physical properties that are not simply unknown in the sense that we're never going to get around to looking at them. We're never going to look under that particular rock which this equation is hidden under, but are genuinely unknowable in the sense that it's a truth about the universe that cannot be proven. And does this have an extension to the world in which we live? For instance, does it have an extension to the paranormal? Big question. I don't know. But it's certainly within the realm of possibility. And that's one of the things that, I wanted to bring to people's attention. And I'm an orthodox scientist. I believe, although I don't believe that in everything that scientists say, because I don't think of science as the last word. I just think it's the latest word. It's our best handle on truth at the moment. But there have been so many times in science when the foundation of what we know has just shattered, and we've had to come and look at the universe in a totally different way.
Right.
And over to you.
Right. No, Jim, great stuff. We do have a question for you from our chat room. Laura, please.
Oh, we sure do. We have Wee Dog Mom, very, very active viewer. She or he asks, with the physics behind time travel, and I know you're a mathematician, but every mathematician has some physics under their belt, does Dr. Stein, you, feel that paranormal events might be warps between the past and the present?
I think that there's been a whole lot of studies in physics on time travel. Actually, there's a lot of time travel that takes place other than our normal just going through life forward. What they've discovered is that the flow of time is altered, either if you go at a very high velocity, that's Einstein's special theory of relativity, or if you go in an intense gravitational field, that's Einstein's general theory of relativity, and these have been confirmed. What the time travel that nobody has been able to prove is impossible, but a lot of people suspect it, is easy to go into the future.
Sure.
Not so easy to go into the past. And there's lots of physics related to the idea of time travel. And I've seen that some very bright scientists have written papers on the possibility of time travel. Could we do this by means of wormholes or intense gravitational fields? And I think it's an open question at the moment. I think that if you were to poll scientists, they'd say, probably the majority of physicists would come down, we don't think we can do it, but it doesn't seem to break any rules that we know of specifically.
Right.
Again, I'm speaking as a mathematician with sort of, a wannabe physicist rather than a physicist himself.
Understood. Jim, and of course, they don't make the DeLorean anymore, so going 88 miles an hour,
Actually,
still a
they do.
challenge. They're making the DeLorean again?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right, we got to get one. All right, Jim, hang tight. We got to take a break for the news. We'll be right back after this.
Sure.
The elusive Bigfoot is back in the news. Since November of 2012, folks living on an Indian reservation near Pendleton, Oregon, have been hearing strange animal calls coming from a nearby dense swamp. Locals claim it sounds like no animal they have ever heard before. During the month of January 2013, one witness was able to make a recording using an iPhone. Take a listen to this clip recorded by Colleen Chance. This recording continues for about 45 more seconds, with similar screeches being heard in regular intervals. Skeptics believe that these screeches are nothing more than foxes calling out, but people who live in the area strongly disagree with that notion. Local men who have heard the cries have admitted to being somewhat frightened by them. One man said his dog refused to go out on their nightly walk after hearing the eerie calls emanating from the swamp. One theory as to the nature of these cries is it might be a young Squatch calling out for its mother. We at 30 Odd Minutes sincerely hope that this is not the case, because any lost child is a sad thing, even if it is a cryptid. I'm Andrew Lake, and oddly enough, that's the news.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to have you here. Okay, tonight's roundtable discussion is about the media covering the paranormal. Now, 2 days ago, ABC News, televised news, covered this article, this recording, and it was very tongue-in-cheek. The newscasters are joking with each other, saying, "Oh, this is crazy! What a funny, assignment you have." And it got me thinking that this is the kind of thing that happens almost every time that the mainstream media covers something paranormal. Oddly enough, to get objective news on the paranormal, you have to come to a show called 30 Odd Minutes and not ABC News. Who knew? But here we are. So my question to you, fellow oddballs, is what are your thoughts when you see this? How can the news cover something that's paranormal without making a joke of it? Matt, let's start with you.
The lamestream media is not able to take it in a serious vein, only because we've been conditioned to accept it only in that way coming from the media. So as a scientist myself, I know personally that watching it on television is going to have its lampooning done. Sure. And it does a disservice, in my opinion, especially as a scientist, because as a scientist, my chief job is to be, what? Objective. Not make my decision one way or another, just make my decisions based on the facts. Give it to me as the facts. I don't need the color commentary.
Right. Andrew, what were your thoughts? You saw that
Yeah,
piece.
it just seems to me like they want to make sure they cover bases. They cover a news story that's interesting and sort of pop culture, but at the same time they're trying to protect their integrity by doing it in this tongue-in-cheek fashion. Like, well, we're going to report this, but, we're much smarter than the average redneck who believes in Bigfoot. But yet they want to make sure that if something does get discovered in that swamp, they were there and did report on it. I'd just like to throw out real quick that my late father, when he was on the radio on WJR years ago, interviewed Barney and Betty Hill, and my dad was one of the biggest skeptics around, and he did treat them with respect and came away scratching his head and wondering maybe he's not seeing the truth around him.
Right. Laura, you worked in the news. What are your thoughts when you saw the coverage of this particular Sasquatch story?
Well, I have to agree with Matt in the sense that as a scientist, a journalist is meant to be objective. So that particular story, that segment, and I'm not sure if any of the viewers have seen it, but you should, was particularly subjective, and definitely the anchors, the reporter himself were all laughing about it. The whole report itself was a joke. They used cartoons,
right,
instead of graphics, which I thought was strange. And they were obviously made to be really funny cartoons and made to further make fun of the story. So I would say I personally don't necessarily believe this that Bigfoot exists. I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anyone. But if I, as a reporter, am given this assignment and told go cover this story, then I will cover it in the way that I would cover any other journalistic story, and the facts, the pictures, and you guys take it from there. The viewer takes it from there. I don't want to give you your opinion before you've had the time to decide what your opinion is. So,
right.
I think it was very, very poor journalism.
And it happens a lot. Dr. Jim, question for you: how are we ever going to get? How are we going to talk about the paranormal when when something happens, the news media just mocks it? It's great to have a real PhD, a mathematician, asking these tougher questions. How do we get it to be taken seriously, where it's a discussion? I mean, we have our laughs and things, but how do we get it to a serious discussion?
If you really want it to be a serious discussion, I think you have to focus on things that are a little simpler that science can actually attack. When you were talking about Bigfoot, I haven't really thought too much about Bigfoot, and mathematics and physics yet aren't anywhere near ready to tackle life sciences and complicated questions like that. But do you recall the story of I think it's pronounced coelacanth?
Yeah,
yes.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
The extinct fish that was extinct.
Yeah. Yes, it was thought to be extinct.
Right.
And then all of a sudden there were there was actually an experience. I think the first one was dug up or at least appeared in some fisherman's catch in the 1930s. And science treated that seriously. I'm not sure that you had coelacanth stories the same way you have Bigfoot stories these days. But what you have to do is you have to get away from what a friend of mine called the woo-woo taboo. You have to start looking at things that are probably a little more demonstrably provable. And if you want to, investigate Sasquatch or the Loch Ness Monster, you're going to have to come up with something that actually convinces people rather than just hypotheses and things that sounded like I was gargling. That's what it reminded me of.
Right.
But what you can do is you can look at phenomena which can actually be tested under laboratory conditions. And there have been a lot of studies involving ESP,
Sure.
telepathy, clairvoyance, remote viewing. I'm not sure that these studies have been done as well as they should be. And I'm also not sure that they've been done under the right conditions with really up-to-date equipment. But the fact is that what you need somebody on your side from the establishment. And even though at the moment you do have one heavy hitter on your side, there's a guy named Brian Josephson who won a Nobel Prize in physics who believes that there's a connection between quantum mechanics, which is where he won his Nobel Prize, and the paranormal phenomena such as telepathy, clairvoyance, etc.
Sure.
He's written papers on this. And what you need to do is you need to be able to fund studies like this, which, believe me, is not easy, because when you want to fund studies, you get either the government or companies to fund it, and they want a payoff on the bottom line. And ask yourself, what's the payoff from finding Bigfoot?
Right. Well,
not nearly the payoff from finding a cure for cancer,
Sure.
or cheap energy or something we can all use. So what you have to do is you have to figure out a way to get it treated seriously and otherwise you're going to get situations like the 2 minutes on ABC you just described.
Right. Now, here's the thing. Now, let's talk about, real quick, Princeton, the Paralab, the Princeton Anomalies Research Laboratory,
Yeah.
which they claim proved ESP, defunded years ago. We had groups looking into this. Where does that go? Why isn't academia studying this anymore?
No money in
Well,
it.
I think the reason that academia doesn't study it is because the results don't convince a sufficiently large segment of academia. And what you're looking at, I know about the Paralab. I'm more familiar with the Rhine results, which
Sure.
he had over 40 years, with the study by Targ and Puthoff, which was published in Nature in the 1970s, concerning remote viewing. And all these things seem to be on the threshold of believability. And that's not what science really wants, because science is highly conservative. Scientists themselves generally tend to be pretty liberal. But in order for something to be accepted as part of science, you want something that you can bedrock rely upon. Because what's going to happen is you're going to build upon it. You're going to invest in it.
Warning. Local radar has picked up the mothership. 1 minute to release weather balloon decoys.
But that's our 1 minute warning. We've got to get out of here. Dr. James Stein, the book is called The Paranormal Equation, a new scientific perspective on remote viewing, clairvoyance, and other inexplicable phenomena. Thank you for joining us. We've got 10 seconds left. What's next? How are you going to prove this to everybody?
Can't, but I'd like to get some help.
Well,
I'm
we're here to help. You've got some oddballs here ready to join the cause. I think it's excellent that we've got a mathematician looking into this and asking the tough questions, and we're honored that you joined us here this evening. So from all of us, Eric,
Thank you
Laura,
very
Matt,
much.
Andrew, and myself,
I enjoyed it.
to all of you, stay odd.
Yeah.